Her skin is split open where the boot rubbed for weeks. Not bleeding, not healing either. When the American soldier's finger presses near the ankle, she flinches. Not away, but inward. A sharp intake of breath. Her calf tightens. The pain is not sharp like a knife. It is hot, deep, alive. "It burns," she says in German. Then quieter, "When you touch it." The smell gives it away first. Sweet sour, rotting cloth and skin. The sock has fused to her flesh. Dried blood, pus, wool fibers. Months of walking, standing, waiting. No soap, no spare pair. The leather boot was never meant for winter roads or open fields turned to mud. The soldier freezes. He is close enough now to see the gray rim around the wound, the swelling creeping upward, the faint tremor in her foot as circulation returns, and screams. She has not screamed once. Cold does that. Hunger, too. A medic's flashlight clicks on, white and sudden, turning the ankle into a small stage of failure, of supply, of time, of neglect. She smells antiseptic for the first time in months and thinks, absurdly, of hospitals that no longer exist. The soldier swallows. This was not what surrender was supposed to feel like. The logistical landscape of defeat. By the spring of 1945, Germany no longer collapses in explosions. It collapses in shortages. No fuel, no trains, no mail, no soap. The war does not end in a clean cut, but in a slow unraveling of systems that once kept bodies functioning. Food stops arriving. Bandages disappear. Medical orders are stamped, but never filled. For women like her, Wehrmachthelferinnen, auxiliary personnel who once typed orders, routed phone calls, decoded signals, the fall is vertical. 1 month they wear uniforms, the next they are surplus bodies in gray coats, moving on foot because nothing else moves. When American troops overrun Western Germany, they inherit not an army, but a population already physiologically depleted. Calorie intake for civilians in many regions has dropped below 1,000 calories per day by early 1945. For women on the move, fleeing, captured, displaced, it is often less. Bread replaces meals. Soup becomes water with a memory of vegetables. The Allies classify millions of captured Germans not as prisoners of war, but as disarmed enemy forces, DEF. The term sounds administrative. The effect is corporal. Under DEF status, captives are no longer protected by full Geneva Convention standards. They can be held in temporary enclosures with minimal shelter. Rations are undefined. Medical care is discretionary. The largest of these enclosures stretch along the Rhine, the Rheinwiesenlager. They are not camps with barracks. They are fields. Barbed wire pressed into mud. No roofs. No stoves. Rain turns the ground into sucking clay that eats boots whole. People sleep standing, or they carve shallow pits with spoons to break the wind. When it rains, the pits fill first. When the sun comes out, the smell arrives. Excrement has nowhere to go. Latrines are shallow and overflow. Lice explode. Kleiderläuse, body lice, nesting in seams and armpits, spreading typhus and trench fever. Scratching becomes involuntary. Skin breaks. Infections follow. Women are often processed alongside men at first, later separated when guards remember modesty exists. The separation solves nothing. There are no supplies for menstruation. Rags are torn from underclothes already worn thin. Some women bleed directly into the mud, wrapping paper around themselves and changing it only when it disintegrates. Medical inspections, when they happen at all, are fast and brutal. Lift the skirt, turn the foot, move on. Most injuries stay hidden. Not out of pride, out of calculation. An untreated wound is dangerous, but drawing attention is worse. Attention means transport. Transport means separation. Separation in 1945 can mean disappearance. So they walk, on frost-numbed feet, in boots scavenged from the dead, in the same socks for months. When circulation disappears, pain goes with it. When it returns, it screams. By the time American medics begin reorganizing certain camps, moving women to enclosed facilities, issuing basic rations, enforcing sanitation orders, many bodies are already in systemic collapse. Edema, amenorrhea, infected burns from cooking fires, trench foot without trenches. The wound on her ankle did not begin as a wound. It began as friction. Leather, bone, time. And by the time a flashlight finds it, Germany's logistics have already failed her. The soldier does not know this yet. He only knows that touching the wound made her shake, and that she did not pull away. The golden cage and the mud hell. Not all American camps look the same. From the outside, they are all called Lager. From inside, the wire is physical enough to bruise. The Rheinwiesenlager, Remagen, Bad Kreuznach, Sinzig, Andernach are the mud hell. They are designed for containment, not survival. Open air. No barracks, no kitchens. American planners assume they will be temporary holding areas, measured in days. Instead, they fill for months. Bodies adapt until they cannot. Rain drives lice deeper into clothing seams. Bread, when it comes, is komisbelt. Dense, sour, dark, already stale. Sometimes it arrives frozen, sometimes not at all. Water is rationed, washing becomes theoretical. People rinse hands in puddles. Women crouch behind wire with skirts held closed by one hand, trying not to be seen. And yet a few kilometers away, other camps exist. Converted factories, horse stables, schools, agricultural depots. These become the golden cage. For women transferred there, often after inspections, after visible illness, after collapse, the shock is immediate and disorienting. There are floors, walls, doors. Some camps have stoves. Some issue straw pallets. A few, after mid-1945, even install showers. The golden cage does not mean freedom. It means containment with calories. American rations are standardized. That is their power. A daily POW ration, once the system stabilizes, contains roughly 2,000 to 2,400 calories. White bread, canned meat, Spam or corned beef, powdered eggs, sugar, and occasionally margarine. For a German woman who has lived for months under 800 calories, the effect is violent. Stomachs revolt, diarrhea spreads. Some women hide food under straw because eating too much at once causes vomiting. Others ration themselves instinctively, breaking bread into careful pieces, distrustful of abundance. White bread is the first shock. It looks wrong. Pale, soft, sweet-smelling. Some think it's cake. Others think it's enriched with chemicals. A few refuse it altogether. They say, "Not for us. There must be a reason." The reason is logistics. By late 1944, the American Quartermaster Corps has perfected mass provisioning. Cans stack neatly. Trucks arrive on schedule. Soap exists. Medical gauze exists. Sulfa powder exists. What does not exist is trust. German women have been trained, formally, informally, biologically, to expect punishment. They expect the shower to be the prelude to delousing with poison gas, not hot water. They expect medical inspections to precede labor assignments, not treatment. So when an American medic kneels instead of standing, it breaks something internal. Not politically, physically. Many Wehrmachthelferinnen come from medical adjacent roles. They know what infection smells like. They know what necrosis looks like. They know when a wound has crossed from inconvenience into danger. And yet, they have walked on it, because the mud hell does not reward weakness. The transition from mud hell to golden cage often hinges on visibility, a swollen whim, fainting during roll call, collapse from hypoglycemia, or a young soldier noticing something is wrong and deciding, quietly, bureaucratically, to intervene. Once inside the golden cage, new humiliations replace old ones. Delousing orders, head shaving, clothing confiscation, the last illusion of femininity. Hair falls in clumps, revealing pale scalps striped with dirt. Some cry, others stare at the floor and say nothing. Menstruation stops for many. Bodies conserve what they can. Medical doctors record it clinically, amenorrhea due to malnutrition. The women experience it as disappearance. And yet, it's better, because in the golden cage, wounds are finally seen. In the golden cage, a flashlight lingers. In the golden cage, a soldier hears a woman say, "It burns when you touch it," and does not move his hand away. Instead, he calls a medic. And that's where the story tightens. Hygiene, lice, and the politics of the body. The first invasion is always small. It begins at the seams. Body lice, clouder loice, do not live in hair. They live in cloth, in the stitched folds of uniforms never washed, in the armpits of coats slept in for weeks, in the waistbands held tight because belts are lost. They bite where skin is thinnest, under breasts, at the base of the neck, along the groin. The itching starts as a distraction. It becomes a rhythm. Scratch, pause, scratch again. Women learn to do it without moving their arms. Shame attaches to lice quickly, not because of the insects themselves, but because they signal failure. Failure to stay clean. Failure to control the body. Failure, in a regime that equated hygiene with worth, to remain civilized. By 1945, hygiene has become impossible. Water is scarce. Soap rarer than bread. Women barter pills, buttons, even their last photographs for slivers of soap scraped thin with fingernails. Menstruation turns hygiene from difficulty to crisis. Without pads, women tear strips from underclothes, already weakened by lice and rot, rinse them in cold water when possible. More often, they do not rinse at all. Blood stiffens cloth. The smell draws insects. Infection follows the smallest tear. American guards issue orders that confuse and terrify. Line up outside. Strip. Clothes in the pile. The fear is not nudity alone. It is exposure. A woman with lice is marked. A woman bleeding is vulnerable. Rumors race through the camp faster than disease. They shave everyone. They burn the clothes. They spray poison. Some of this is true. Delousing is mandatory. Clothing is confiscated and boiled or destroyed. Hair is shaved, sometimes carefully, sometimes with dull clippers that pull instead of cut. The sensation is intimate and violent at once. Locks fall. Identity follows. For women, hair is not vanity. It is camouflage. It signals health, youth, normalcy. Losing it in public erases the last boundary between soldier and spoil. American medics insist it is necessary. They are not wrong. Lice carry typhus. Typhus spreads in camps that cannot wash. By late 1945, U.S. Army medical reports list typhus outbreaks in multiple German detention facilities. Shaving heads saves lives, statistically. Individually, it humiliates. This is the paradox of post-war survival. Procedures that preserve the body dismantle dignity. Some women resist. They hide lice by cutting seams out of garments. They pluck knits with fingernails until beds are stained with crushed insects. They smear grease into hair to slow infestation. Others surrender. When American medics encounter wounds during delousing, raw scalp sores, infected scratch marks, rashes that bleed when touched, the body becomes an archive of neglect. The ankle wound is discovered this way. Not during battle, not during interrogation, during hygiene. A woman lifts her foot reluctantly. The boot peels away reluctantly. The sock comes last, fused to flesh. The medic smells it before he sees it. Anaerobic infection, skin starved of oxygen, frostbite, complicated by pressure necrosis, left untreated because stopping means collapse. She says it burns. Not accusing, reporting. American training emphasizes efficiency. Treat fast, move on. But this wound requires time. Removal will hurt. Cleaning will hurt worse. Sulfa powder will sting like fire. The medic hesitates. Permission matters now. Not legally, humanly. She nods once. And the body that has been ignored for months finally becomes the center of attention. Material shock. Bread and improvised survival. The bread breaks first. Not her resolve, the structure. American white bread does not tear like misbrot. It collapses under pressure, springing back slightly when released. When it is placed in her hands, it feels wrong. Too light, too soft. Bread is supposed to resist you. It is supposed to hurt your jaw. This one yields. She smells it. Yeast. Sugar. Something almost sweet. The first bite sticks to the roof of her mouth. Her tongue searches for grit and finds none. She does not swallow right away. Around her, women watch each other closely. No one wants to be the first to show reaction. They chew slowly, faces blank. The body betrays them anyway. Saliva floods the mouth. Shoulders loosen. Knees tremble. Some cry without sound. Others laugh once sharply, like a cough. Material abundance shocks the nervous system. This is not generosity yet. It is collision. American objects behave differently. Soap lathers. Cans open smoothly. Blankets are thick and do not smell like strangers. Nylon stockings, when they appear through barter or discard, stretch without tearing. For women whose legs have been wrapped in newspaper and string, this elasticity feels like technology bordering on magic. In camps where women are allowed to work, kitchens, laundries, medical stations, ingenuity blooms quickly. Survival has already trained them. The bucket becomes everything. A toilet when latrines overflow. A wash basin when water is rationed. A cooking pot when scrap food is smuggled. American soldiers notice this and sometimes laugh, calling it clever. They do not understand that the bucket is not cleverness. It is necessity refined. Menstruation management evolves materially. Cotton is scavenged from medical waste, pillow stuffing, American bandages, boiled and reused, sometimes traded directly with GIs, who are confused but compliant once the need is explained in gestures. Food barter becomes language. Chocolate for sewing, soap for buttons, cigarettes for labor. Cigarettes become currency, even for women who never smoke. This is where the fraternization ban enters the body. Officially, American soldiers are prohibited from intimate contact with German civilians and POWs. Unofficially, hunger bends rules. So does loneliness. So does prolonged proximity. Women learn quickly where the line is and how close they can stand without crossing it. Some never approach. Others calculate. The term chocolate girls emerges. Dismissive, accusatory, born of envy and moral fear. It erases context. It ignores that a woman with calories has power, and a woman without does not have morality as a luxury. Not all interactions are sexual. Many are transactional in quieter ways. A bandage slipped through a gate. A loaf dropped near a fence. A medic lingering long enough to ensure a wound is really clean. For the soldier who touches her ankle, the shock is not her injury alone. It is the realization that survival has required constant improvisation, that the body he sees, thin, shaved, injured, is not evidence of enemy cruelty, but of total systemic failure. He kneels again, this time with gauze. The inspection that becomes an encounter. The gauze sticks, not gently, not cleanly. It pulls away from her skin with a sound like tearing paper, except it is flesh. She grips the edge of the cot hard enough that her knuckles bleach white. Her breath goes shallow, short, measured. She will not scream. Screaming costs energy. The American medic notices this, the discipline of it. He has seen men scream for less. He has seen men cry when boots come off. She does neither. Her body shakes instead, a fine tremor starting at the ankle and spreading upward, as if the pain is seeking an exit and cannot find one. He rinses the wound. Cold water first, then antiseptic. The burn arrives instantly. It is not abstract. It is not emotional. It is a physical force, sharp and engulfing, like heat poured directly into the skin. She gasps despite herself. Her thigh lifts involuntarily. Another medic steadies her knee, firm but not rough. Easy, someone says. She does not understand the words, but the tone cuts through the noise in her head. It is not barked. It is not rushed. This inspection was supposed to be routine. In the weeks after the German surrender, American medical teams are overwhelmed. Tens of thousands of bodies, no charts, no histories, no language shared. The priority is containment of disease, typhus, dysentery, tuberculosis. Individual wounds matter only insofar as they threaten the group. But this one is wrong. The ankle is swollen asymmetrically. Heat radiates upward. The skin around the wound is discolored, grayish at the edges, a sign of tissue death. When the medic presses gently above it, she winces again. Not in the skin, but deeper, near the bone. Possible osteomyelitis, bone infection, hard to treat even with antibiotics. Without them, it kills slowly. He asks how long. She does not know how to answer. Weeks? Months? Since the march? Since the camp? Since before the bridge crossings when boots were soaked and never dried again? Time blurred with hunger. Pain dulled by necessity. She shrugs slightly. Lang, she says. Long. He exhales through his nose. This is not a wound of battle. This is a wound of logistics, of walking when stopping means disappearing, of standing during roll call when sitting means being noticed. Protocol says isolate, transfer, mark the chart, move on. But the chart is thin paper, and the camp is full. Isolation means transport to another enclosure, another wire, another delay. The medic hesitates again. This pause, this small, illegal pause, is the fulcrum. He asks for sulfa powder. She watches his hands closely now. Not the face, the hands. They are clean, nails trimmed. They move with practiced economy. No shaking, no hurry. When the powder hits the wound, she cries out. This time, sound escapes her. The burn is total. It fills her chest. Her vision blurs. Her other foot presses hard into the floor instinctively, as if trying to anchor herself in the room. Tears arrive, without warning, hot and humiliating. She turns her face away. The soldier does not. He does not apologize either. That would make it sentimental. He waits until her breathing evens out again, then applies a fresh dressing, loose enough not to constrict. Good, good, he says. She does not know the word, but she knows the tone. This moment, this inspection, this touch that hurts because it heals, is when the war ends for her body. Not because she is free, but because someone has finally decided she is worth stopping for. White bread, a child, and the moment the body gives up. She does not eat immediately. The bread sits on the edge of the cot, wrapped in thin paper that crackles when touched. She has learned not to rush food. Eating too fast brings cramps, sharp, twisting pain that folds the body inward and steals breath. Hunger has taught her pacing better than any doctor. The ankle throbs now with a different rhythm. Hotter, sharper, alive. Pain that signals circulation, not death. The bandage smells faintly of antiseptic and starch. It smells foreign, clean. Across the room, a child cries. Not loud first, a wet, broken sound, pulled from deep in the chest. The kind of crying that does not ask for comfort, but announces need. The girl is maybe 6, hair cropped unevenly, scalp still pink from delousing. Her dress hangs loose in the shoulders. Too big, or too worn, or both. The mother is there, thin, eyes sunken, holding the child with an awkward stiffness, as if pressure alone might break her. The child reaches out with one hand, grasping at the air. Her gaze locks on the bread. Not out of greed, out of recognition. Food has a gravity. Bodies feel it. The American soldier notices the look immediately. He has seen it before, in Italy, in France, in bomb towns where children learn early not to beg, but still stare. He says something she does not understand. His tone is matter of fact, not a question. He tears the bread in half. The sound is soft. The crumb pulls apart in pale threads. Steam escapes faintly. It is still warm. The woman on the cot watches closely now. Her fingers tighten around the blanket. Part of her wants to look away. Part of her cannot. Giving food away feels dangerous. It signals weakness. It invites expectation. In camps, generosity costs calories you might not replace. The soldier kneels in front of the child. He does not hand her the bread directly. He offers it first to the mother. Permission matters again. The mother hesitates, eyes flicking to the guards, to the wire, to the room. Then she shakes her head once, quickly. Fear overrides hunger. Fear learned hard. The soldier waits. Then he places the bread in the child's hands. The effect is immediate and shocking. The girl bites without chewing. Teeth sink in. Her face freezes for a second, confused by texture. Then her jaw begins to work. Fast, desperate. Crumbs scatter across her dress. She coughs and keeps eating anyway. The woman on the cot feels her chest collapse. This is the breaking point. Not because of kindness, because of the body's recognition. White bread means fuel without pain. It means no jaw strain, no bleeding gums. It means sugar entering the bloodstream fast. It means warmth later. Her stomach clenches in anticipation, a reflex she cannot stop. The soldier returns with another piece. For her. He does not say anything. He does not look at her directly. He sets it down on the metal tray beside her bed, as if it has always belonged there. The room is quiet, except for chewing. She lifts the bread slowly. Her fingers tremble, not from fear, but from the sudden realization that her body wants this more than it wants dignity. She eats. At first, small bites, then larger ones. The taste is overwhelming, sweet, almost cake-like. Tears slip down her face without permission. She swallows hard, then stops, clutching the bread tightly as if it might be taken away mid-bite. No one does. Her resolve, trained by years of scarcity, ideology, fear, does not shatter loudly. It erodes, softly, like material weakened over time. She begins to cry then, fully, soundless sobs that shake her ribs. Not for Germany, not for defeat, not even for the injury, but for the months of walking she did not stop, the blood she hid, the pain she rationed, the body she abandoned to keep moving. The soldier stands quietly until it passes. He does not touch her. That restraint is the final rupture. Because for the first time, she understands that surrender does not always mean being taken. Sometimes it means being allowed to collapse. The body that remembers. The ankle heals slowly. Not cleanly, not completely. Infections this deep rarely do. American medical records from late 1945 note high rates of inflammation, especially in the lower extremities, feet and ankles that have endured prolonged cold, pressure, and malnutrition. Sulfa slows the infection. Rest helps. Calories matter most of all. But tissue once starved never quite returns to what it was before. She walks with a slight hitch afterward. It is subtle, invisible to strangers, but she feels it with every step. A reminder written in tendon and scar tissue. The body remembers what the mind might try to forget. Many women leave the camps with similar leg injuries. Some lose toes to frostbite. Others develop ulcers that reopen years later during pregnancies or illness. Bones weakened by protein deficiency fracture easily. Doctors note osteomalacia, softening of bone, in young women barely in their 20s. Menstruation does not return for everyone. In camp hospitals, American physicians track it with clinical detachment. Cycles resume after weight gain. Absence persists in cases of extreme starvation. Privately, women count months with fear. The body has gone quiet in a place that once functioned automatically. Infertility becomes a rumor before it becomes a diagnosis. Whispers circulate. She didn't bleed anymore. Her hips hurt all the time. She can't carry a child. Shame attaches to these stories. Not because of biology, but because the war has taught women to equate worth with endurance. A body that does not recover feels like moral failure. Hair grows back unevenly. Some women keep it short forever. Others grow it long, deliberately, as if to overwrite the memory of forced shaving with excess. But even years later, certain smells, antiseptic, boiled cloth, trigger a tightening in the chest. In memoirs written decades later, these details surface unexpectedly. Not the wire, not the guards, the sensations, the itch that never fully went away, the way bread tasted different afterward, how water sounded in metal buckets. The woman with the ankle injury is released months later, not as a victory, as paperwork. By then, she has learned American routines. She understands the rhythm of distribution. She knows when to stand and when to sit. She has learned English words for pain, for hunger, for enough. When she steps beyond the wire, she carries no bitterness that fits slogans. What she carries is a recalibrated body. Food is no longer just food. It is safety. Shoes matter intensely. Socks are washed obsessively. Wounds are never ignored again. The war has trained her nervous system permanently, and that training will shape the world to come. Memory, numbers, and the quiet accounting. By the time the camps officially closed in 1948, the numbers were stark. Over 200,000 German women had passed through American-controlled facilities in the West. Mortality was far lower than in the open Rheinwiesenlager fields, thanks to calories, blankets, and medical intervention, but the cost was somatic. Lice, malnutrition, frostbite, and untreated wounds left marks on bodies that survived politically intact, but physically scarred. Calorie counts, carefully logged, tell a dispassionate story. The ration that would shock the newly arrived, 2,000 to 2,400 calories per day of bread, meat, sugar, was enough to restore weight, but could not reverse tissue damage already done. Many women returned home lighter than their pre-war selves, their menstrual cycles irregular, their hair thinned, their energy permanently altered. Yet memory preserves a different ledger. In A Woman in Berlin, she notes, "I could not believe bread could taste like this, not like starvation bread, like life itself." The quote is concise, but the sensory record behind it is vast. Teeth sinking into soft crumb, the sweetness after months of bitter dark bread, the heat from a freshly baked loaf igniting nerves dulled by cold and exhaustion. Physical memory merges with emotional memory. Hands trained to scrub lice now tremble over white tablecloths. Feet that once endured mud now seek warmth and dry socks compulsively. Bodies that had been objectified for inspection retain the imprint of attention, both clinical and compassionate. Even decades later, traces persist. The ankle wound sometimes throbs in damp weather. The memory of sulfa powder stings the skin of imagination. Clothing, loose, soft, American-issued, remains desirable not as fashion but as comfort. Every sensory encounter with warmth, softness, and abundance evokes that initial shock, that crossing from mud and lice to a blanket and a slice of bread. American kindness leaves its own imprint. Not all soldiers behaved with care, but the structured, methodical treatment of injuries, the small gestures of food sharing, the maintenance of hygiene, these interventions rewrite expectations of human contact. A hand that presses gently on burned flesh, a loaf broken in two for a child, a boot removed with care. These are micro-historical events that shape bodies, nerves, and memory. In the end, war leaves its ledger in more than numbers. It leaves it in bones, scars, and reflexes, in the way the body remembers hunger and safety, violation and care, neglect and attention. Even when the body heals, the archive remains. The pain, the warmth, the bread, it is all recorded in muscle memory, in subtle shifts in gait, in the way hands handle objects for the first time after release. And for her, and for thousands like her, the shock of the mundane, of antiseptic, white bread, and a gentle touch, becomes the enduring testimony of survival. The archive of the body. History is often told in maps, in troop movements, in dates stamped on the walls of offices. Yet the story of the war's end, for millions of women like her, is written in flesh. Skin, tendon, and bone record more than orders ever could. A burned ankle remembers months of forced marches and frozen mud. Hair that was shaved remembers both shame and survival. Stomachs calibrated by starvation never forget the first taste of white bread. Hands once trained to scrub lice now instinctively fold blankets neatly, measure portions carefully, honor hygiene. These are micro-histories encoded in the body, stories of endurance, improvisation, and quiet human attention. The moments that seem trivial, an American soldier kneeling to examine a wound, a loaf of bread broken in two, a child fed without ceremony, reverberate through years. They teach trust, fear, and the limits of control. They demonstrate that survival is more than evasion or concealment. It is negotiation with flesh, hunger, and care. Bodies became the archive where bureaucracy failed. In Rheinwiesenlager fields, the mud, lice, and cold recorded neglect. In golden cage camps, blankets, food, and antiseptic inscribed intervention. Memory is bound in the tactile, a hand that heals, a foot that thaws, a mouth that tastes sweetness for the first time in months. Perhaps this is why some women never spoke of it. Not because it was shameful, but because language flattens sensation. It cannot hold the heat of infection, the sharpness of frostbite, or the tremor of a hand held too long in pain. Only the body retains such detail. In the quiet decades afterward, as women rebuild lives, they carried these archives invisibly. Not all scars were visible. Not all wounds marked the surface. And yet the lessons endured. The value of attention, the shock of abundance, the intimacy of care. Small gestures with enormous consequence. History, therefore, is not just what armies did or treaties decreed. History is in the skin, in the taste, in the ache of survival. It is intimate, somatic, undeniable. And through it, the story of a burned ankle, ignored, then touched, then healed, becomes a lens to understand the world that emerged from war, a world built not only by politics and maps, but by small, human interventions that reshaped bodies, memory, and trust.